So over the course of this series, there's a verse that we've come back to a couple of times, and it's found in the book of Jeremiah, Jeremiah 33, verse 3, and it says this. It says, "Call to me, and I will answer you." All right, we'll try it again. Call to me, and I will. Okay, you may notice up there, it does not say, "Your wish is my command." Okay? Because here's the deal. For a lot of us, we live in the wealthiest nation in the world. We're used to getting everything basically we want, and if it's not available, we can get it here in 24 hours on our doorsteps. For a lot of us, if we ask for something, we are used to only one answer. But this is not saying that whatever you ask for is going to happen. It's saying, "Call to me, and I will answer you." Now, here's the thing. Yes is an answer. Wait is an answer. Not a chance is an answer. No is an answer. And today, that's what I'm going to be looking at. Today, what I want to look at is the fact that in life, there are going to be some prayers. They're not going to go unanswered because God always promises that he's going to answer our prayers. But in life, we're going to get some prayers where the answer is actually going to be no. And that can be a confusing topic. And we didn't want to end this series without looking at the topic of God saying no. Because sometimes we ask, you know what, if God is truly loving and has the power to control everything, then why is my request denied? Why do some people get miracles and others don't? Why do some couples pray for babies and they don't get them, and others, their prayers are answered? Why did I pray for that person and they got better, and I prayed for that person and they actually passed away? In other words, why does God sometimes say yes, and why does God sometimes say no? And it can be a frustrating topic. So today, I'm going to just spend a little while, and I wanted to look at that topic. Because if you are on this planet for any length of time, there are prayers where the answer to you is actually going to be no. Now, there could be hundreds, there could be thousands of explanations. Okay, I'm not going to keep you here that long, I promise. But we're going to look at a few of them today. A few of them are really, really obvious. Because here's the thing. If two people are praying for opposite things, guess what? Somebody is not going to get what they're praying for. Okay? The month of February is a great example of that point, and here's why. Anytime it says snow in the forecast, in one room of your house, you have kids who are praying for a snow day the next day, right? And in the other room of the house, you have parents who are on their knees begging God, promising to become missionaries to China, to tithe 11%, and to never say that word again if he just allows the schools to be open. But you get my point, right? So two people, opposite prayers, somebody is going to be disappointed the next day. And being on the parental end, it feels like we are more often than not, but we won't get into that. So that can be a reason. Two people praying opposite ways. Another quick reason is that God gave each of us free will. We were all born, God gave us free will. So if somebody comes up to you and says, "Listen, I'm praying that God forces you to marry me," two things. One, run as fast as you can, okay? But number two, just know that God is not going to do that. God gave us free will. You're praying for somebody to fall in love with you. I'm sorry, but you're better off heading to the Macy's perfume counter, because that's not going to happen. Now, sadly, for some of us, you may be praying for somebody to stay in love with you, and same reason, right? God gave each of us free will, so that's going to be a reason sometimes why the answer is no. And another really obvious one I realize is that none of us are meant to be on this planet forever, okay? This is a place of sorrow, there's sadness, there's tears, there are all those things that we're not going to get when we get up to heaven. So to be honest, none of us are meant to live forever. If that was the case, that we could pray and pray and pray and keep living and keep living and keep living and not get sick, right now Billy Graham would not be in a casket somewhere down south, because if there was ever a man of faith, that would be him, right? So that's why some of us, sometimes prayers, now, some people pass away earlier, some later, but just know we all I was going to say we all have a shelf life, which is probably not really, but you know what I mean, right? Okay, so none of us is meant to be here forever. You get that point. So those are some really obvious reasons why God sometimes is going to say no. And so when God says no to us, though, it can be the greatest test in our lives. God's saying, are you going to trust me? Are you going to believe me? It may be there's a tragic accident, the unexplained death, the dashed dreams, the unfulfilled longing, and basically it's a case of how we respond to that. So what I want to do for the next several minutes is just look at 3 more reasons in depth as to why maybe God says no, but then I just want to go on and look at a couple of ways that maybe we can respond to it when we do hear that answer, because we are at times going to get that answer. Let me just say this. Basically, today I am giving you information. Really, I want to get you to start thinking about this topic, because for a lot of us, it's something we've never really given depth to. You know, we just get mad when we hear the answer is no. So if you come across somebody who's grieving or is not being comforted, please don't say, well, Charlotte said God said no because, and maybe we never know why God has said no to one person or another. So today, I just really want to get you thinking about the topic, and we'll see where we go from there. So number 1, God says no because he has a bigger perspective. Here's the thing. God can see what I can't see. He sees the whole picture. We don't. God sees the wider view. We don't. God can see the future. We can't. God can see around the corner. He can see 10 years into the future. He can see the implications of every decision that I make at this present time, and he can see how that is going to play out in years and decades to come. I can't see that. I can just see my narrow perspective at this point. I don't have God's perspective. So a couple of weeks ago, Dad, for those who don't know, Dad is what I call our lead pastor, Roger, okay? So Dad was up here, and he told a story about me. So, you all know. Actually, so when Dad watches this later, which is probably going to be this afternoon or this evening, this is where he's going to start sweating, okay? Because he forgot when he told a story about me that I had the microphone like 2 weeks later. So he told this story about me when I was about 4. For those who weren't here that day, let me just give you the brief overview. The story goes like this. Allegedly, and I say allegedly because if there's no cell phone video to prove it, I don't know if it actually happened, let me just say, okay? So, allegedly, when I was 4 years old, my mom's nodding her head because she goes, oh yeah, I remember, okay? So when I was 4 years old, they took me shopping for a coat. Now, apparently, at that particular time, well, still the same, I had very strong ideas of what coat I actually wanted. Unfortunately, she's going, Unfortunately, my strong ideas of what coat I wanted did not fit to my parents' budget at that particular time, okay? So they decided they would try to get me to take a different coat. Some of you may remember Dad had told this story. So they tried to get me to try on another coat, which apparently, allegedly, led to me throwing an absolute fit on the floor of this department store, screaming at them that they had ruined my life. Everybody was going to laugh at me, and that was going to be the end of things as I knew it. Allegedly, okay? Right now, you all are like, no, that couldn't have happened. Apparently, it did. But my point is this. At that particular moment in time, 4-year-old Charlotte Blackmore truly believed that if she was made to wear that coat, her life was over, everybody would laugh at her, and she would be scarred forever from the fact she was made to wear not the coat that she wanted. That is what I truly believed at that moment in time. Now, my point is this. My parents had a much better perspective at that point than I did. They actually knew that that thing I really, really wanted was not actually going to make a huge difference in my life going down the road besides that minute or two that I was screaming on the floor of the department store. They had a bigger perspective than I did. They knew everybody would not laugh at me. They knew I would still be alive the next day if I had that coat, and that things would be okay, and that eventually I would forget completely about the incident until my dad raised it 42 years later and reminded everybody about it, right? They had a different perspective. They had a bigger perspective. And that's how God is. Because sometimes we're down here throwing our temper tantrum about what we need, what we have to have. You don't understand. If I don't get this, life is going to be over. And God's up there going, you're going to be fine. Because he can see what we can't see. Sometimes God doesn't answer our prayers the way we want, completely because he sees the unintended consequences of what we're asking for. I have no idea the things I'm asking for, how those are going to have a future effect, but he knows how they're going to influence my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids, and on and on and on and on. His perspective means that he knows those things, even if I don't know them. Because if we could see our life the way God sees it, would our prayers be different? Yep, okay. If we could see our life the way God does, would it solve many of our problems? Yeah. If we'd never have unexpected trouble, we'd never have unexpected difficulties, we'd never ask for the wrong thing because we know the consequences it would have on our life. But we don't know that, so sometimes at that point, I have to rely on God and trust on God and know that he knows the bigger picture. So last week, last week, he was talking about how he bought a Mustang, right? The Mustang GT, I don't know, 8-cylinder or whatever it was, Mustang several years ago. Now, at that point when he bought that, I had a preteen son. And basically, every day he would say to me, can't wait till I'm old enough to drive that Mustang. Can't wait till I'm old enough to drive that Mustang. Now, thankfully, Dad sold the Mustang before Jace got his driver's license, so I didn't have to worry about that part. But as a parent, again, with a different perspective, I knew how this was going to go. I knew that if a 60-plus-year-old man got multiple speeding tickets with it, oops, did I just say that? Okay? So, but I knew. It's been nice knowing you all. Probably never see you again. I'll probably be fired tomorrow. No. But I knew that if that was the case for him, there was no way this was going to end well for the 16-year-old boy who wanted to drive this crazy car. Do you know what I'm saying? Again, it's all a matter of perspective. I had more perspective than Jace did at that particular moment, and we just have to trust and know that God has more perspective, better perspective, and sometimes he's protecting us from ourselves, right? He's protecting things that are going on. In fact, Proverbs 2:8 says this. It says, God guards the course of the just and protects the way of his faithful ones. Two words there just to look at, guards and protects. It doesn't mean that God's going to take you out of all of life's troubles, but it does mean he is going to help you in the frying pan that you're in. He's going to keep you from being burned. A literal example of that, of course, is in Daniel 3. 3 young Hebrew men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, refused to bow down to the king's idol. The king literally threw them into a fire. And if you read that story, you see that actually the king then saw 4 people in there, and God protected them, and they walked out unscathed, unharmed, not a single thing burned on them. God is going to protect you sometimes when you're in that fire that you're in. Number 2, God says no when he has a better plan. Sometimes God says, I intend to answer your prayers, just not the way that you asked for it. I have a better idea. Isaiah 55:8-9 says, this plan of mine is not what you would work out. Neither are my thoughts the same as yours. My ways are higher than your ways. Notice that, plural, ways. God has never just has one way of doing things. Unlike us, God's options are limited. He has many alternatives. See, Oftentimes, the problem is this. The problem is when we pray, we don't just tell God the way what we want. We want to tell him how we want it. We want it our preferred way, and our preferred way is usually the easiest way. God, I'm in financial difficulties. I'm having a real hard time with debt. If you could just allow me to win the lotto or Publishers Clearinghouse, it would all be good and we'd never worry about it ever again, right? So those are the things. Now, let me just say, I can pretty much guarantee God is not going to use those things to get you out of debt because he's more interested in growing your character than making things easy for you, but that's just another discussion for another day, okay? He wants to answer. He wants to help you get out of debt, but he doesn't want to help you in an easy way, and then tomorrow you're back at the mall maxing out all your credit cards, okay? He is going to be doing it the best way that is going to grow your faith, that is going to grow your relationship with him, that is going to make you realize that God had his hand in it and only God could help you get out of it. So just a reminder that God says no when he has a better plan, okay? Thirdly, let me say, God says no when he has a greater purpose. God has a purpose for each and every one of our lives. He made us for a purpose. He made us with a purpose. And God will not even let your prayers interfere with the purpose he has planned for your life. Okay? If you're praying something that's not according to his purpose, just not going to happen. He's not going to give it to you because he has a plan for your life and how your life is going to go. Psalm 57:2 said this, I cry out to God Most High, to God who will fulfill his purpose for me. Those things that God allows in your life to fulfill your purpose, they are not all going to be good. But God uses that. Everything that God allows in our lives, he allows it for a purpose. 1 Peter 1:7 says this. It says, the purpose of these troubles is to test your faith as fire tests how genuine gold is. Your faith is more precious than gold. Can I just say this? Sometimes we suffer for the benefit of other people. The technical term for that is redemptive suffering. Sometimes I'm going through things because how it will allow me to help others, to work in others' lives. I've shared before my story of how life kind of got turned upside down for me about 10 years ago. I won't go into all of that, but everything changed from what I thought it was going to be, and it was never the way, this was not how I imagined life was going to be. And a couple of years after that, Dad and I did something that we'd never done before, and actually we've never done since, is we preached a message together. And we talked about the subject that, unfortunately, I had then encountered, which was the subject of divorce. And we talked, and we gave a message about divorce. And I remember it was over when we were in the Regal Cinemas in Ronkonkoma. I think it was about the second time I'd actually stood up in front of the church and shared a message. And it was a subject that was still raw with me and still something I was still working through. So I basically, for those of you who are there, will remember, I stood up there and I shook and I trembled, and it was a toughest thing that I've done for a long time to get through that subject because it was still something that was going on with me. I still get people to this day who say, I still listen to that message. There's things you said that day have really, really helped me with what I've been going through. And with everything I've gone through in life, I realize that nothing with God is ever wasted. What I have been through, I've been able to help others. I've been able to minister to others. As my life has progressed, I can talk to people, about divorce, remarriage, stepkids, blended families, all those kind of things. And I never, ever would have chosen to do that. Honestly, if I at that point could have said, God, just take this all away from me, just make it all better, please fix it, which I did more than once, to be honest, I would have been happy with that. But I know now, looking back, that what I went through was for a reason, and the reason was I've been able to reach out and talk to others who before I may have sympathized with, but now I empathize with. I know exactly what they're going through. I know what's going on with them. let me just say as a complete side note that message, actually, Dad and I have decided this summer we're going to do the 2018 version. It's a topic that is not talked about enough. So this summer, we're actually going to revisit that. I guess we'll get my 2018 perspective. I'll try not to shake and tremble as I stand up there, but on the topic of divorce, which hits so many people and so many people live through. But I say all that to say nothing is ever wasted when it comes to God. We were shown the ultimate example of that when God allowed his own son to suffer so that I could be saved for my salvation. And when he allows you to go through those kind of things for the benefit of helping others, at that point you're like Christ, because you are suffering for some other reason, for somebody to help somebody else. In 2 Corinthians 4:17 it says this, "For our present troubles are small and won't last very long. Yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever." So we don't look at the troubles we can see now. Rather, we fix our gaze on things that cannot be seen. For the things we see now will soon be gone, but the things we cannot see will last forever. I often think that, man, I'm old. I feel old at some days. It's like, oh, this is really rough. And then we remember that basically this life that I'm on is a speck. In the course of eternity, because I have an eternal destiny, an eternal future ahead of me, this life is a speck. So when we go through things, it may seem like it's lasting forever, it's going on forever. Let me encourage you. Fix your gaze on those, on eternity, on the things that can't be seen, the things that will last forever. Anytime that you feel discouraged, just remind yourself that God has a greater purpose for your lives. Remind yourselves that he's got a better plan, he's got a bigger purpose, and a better perspective than we could ever have, okay? And like I say, those are only some reasons why he may say no. I don't know them all, and I won't know them all till I get to heaven for some of the prayers that I've prayed why the answer was no. But those are some of them. So what do we do when God says no? First one right up there. Remember, God has all of eternity to fulfill his promises. There's about 6,000 promises in the Bible to you. But the thing is this, God is not limited by my time here on earth. Like I say, my time here on earth, a speck, okay? God has promises. I'm going to be with God, so he has a long time where he has to fulfill some of the promises to me in those lives. Some of those promises are going to be fulfilled in heaven. They're going to be fulfilled in eternity. Those are coming for you. There's a patience factor involved. I have one of my greatest possessions with me here in this bag. Now, some of you who have been here before think I'm about to whip a pocketbook out of here, okay? But surprisingly, I'm not. What I have in my bag is a Cabbage Patch doll. Now, right now you're saying, wow, that doll must be really old. Actually, teenagers are saying that. Must be. But here's the thing, actually, this doll is not really old. And here's the story with this doll. So when these dolls came out, it was, I guess, the early 80s. I lived in Scotland at that time. For those of you who haven't worked out where the accent came from, it's almost slightly still there. So we were in Scotland at that time, and these Cabbage Patch dolls came out, and they were huge over there, too. I'm assuming they were here also. So I was about 10 or 11, I guess, at the time when they came out. Now, here's the thing. We lived in a very affluent area. Fishing was the main industry, and the guys did really, really well at fishing. My dad wasn't a fisherman. He was the village pastor, which meant that this doll actually would have cost about 2/3 of what he made. I actually asked him this week. It would have cost about 2/3 of his weekly salary. He could not afford to buy me one of these dolls. So my parents would always say, we're sorry, but one day we'll get you one. About 10 years ago, my mom walked into my house. With my Cabbage Patch doll. Okay, so that's why it's one of my prized possessions. That's what God's like with us. Now, I am not saying that God cannot afford to fulfill your promises or answer your prayers. Not at all. But here's what I've learned from having this doll. If I had got this at the age of 10 years later, I wouldn't be showing it to you. You know what I mean? But because I got this doll when I was 35, 36, it means a lot more to me, I'll be honest, than it would have when I was a little kid. This doll means the world to me. And sometimes we just need to remember that when we get those things that we're praying for, those things that we're asking God for, we're going to treasure them so much more. They're going to mean so much to us because we have been patient and because God has given those things to us. In Hebrews 11, there's this fascinating chapter, and it talks about a lot of the champions of our faith, I guess, Bible heroes, we would almost refer to them. There's Abel, there's Enoch, there's Abraham, there's Noah, there's Moses. There's all of these incredible people from the Bible who we've read the stories about who since we were little. But at the end of that, in the middle of that chapter, and also at the end, but I want to read from the middle of the chapter. It says this: each one of these people of faith died not yet having in hand what was promised, but still believing. How did they do it? They saw it way off in the distance, waved their greeting, and accepted the fact that they were transients in this world. People who live this way make it plain that they are looking for their true home. If they were homesick for the old country, they could have gone back anytime they wanted. But they were after a far better country than that, heaven country. You can see why God is so proud of them and has a city waiting for them. Some of God's promises to you, and I'm sorry, it's not in your notes. That's Hebrews 11, verse 13 through 16. I just read if you wanted to look it up. Some of those promises God has given you, you're not going to see this side of eternity. But you just need to keep your eyes on the fact that this life is not our goal. This life is not what we're striving for. This life is not what we're aiming towards. It's what comes after this life. And that is going to be when God fulfills these promises to you. Secondly, let me say, expect God to give you his grace to handle the answer. When the answer is no, for some of us, it can be devastating. It can be life-changing, and we just don't know if we're going to be able to live with it. But when God says that, we need to remember that God will also give us his grace. That's his strength and his power to handle the answer. The Apostle Paul didn't get all the answers to all of his prayers. In fact, the Apostle Paul lived with some kind of affliction that we don't know what it was. He lived with some kind of illness, disability, whatever it was. And in fact, he referred to that as a thorn in his flesh. And in the 2 Corinthians, he says this: 3 times I begged the Lord to take it away. Each time he said, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I am glad to boast about my weakness. My pain, my problems, my difficulties, my weaknesses, he's referring to there, so that the power of Christ can work through me. And at the end there it says, for when I am weak, then I am strong. I'm not strong because of anything I can do. I'm not strong because of anything I've done, but I'm strong because even at my weakest, I can cling to the fact that God's grace is there for me. God's strength is there for me. God's power is there for me. We're not going on our own power. We're going on God's power. That's why we are going to be strong. And when life is tough, and it's tough at times, when life is painful, we need to cling to God's grace and remember that it's there for you. See, most of the things I've learned in life, I've learned from the most painful times. Pleasure, you don't really learn a lot from. Praise and compliments, you don't really learn a lot from. But criticism and attacks and times of pain and times that have brought me to my knees, that's when we learn life's lessons. That's when we learn that there's only one place that I can turn to. There's only one thing that I can cling to and hold on to at those times, and that is God's grace. And I also need to be mindful of the fact of this. If God never ever said yes to another prayer in my life, I still owe him the rest of my life. And I know for a lot of you, you say, yeah, me too. I do too. Some of you are sitting here this morning and you've heard me talk, and basically from the minute I said we're going to talk about when God says no, in your head you've been reliving that great disappointment, that thing that happened in your life, the person who was taken away from you too early, the things that you've lived through, whatever the answer God gave you at that, whenever God answered no, you've been sitting and you've been reliving that over and over. And so far, not one thing I have said has resonated with you as to why God said no and what to do with it. So can I just leave you with one third final thing, and that is this. I always need to trust that God does everything in goodness and love. Never going to understand, not going to have most of the answers until I pass on and I head to heaven, okay? But God does nothing that is unloving. I have to trust that. God does nothing that is evil. Everything that God does is for our own good and because he loves us. Psalm 25:10, it says, all the ways of the Lord are loving. See, God can't act in an unloving way. God is love. Romans 8:28 says this, and we know that in all things, God works together. God works, that was the King James Version. God works for the good of those who love him, okay? So in all things, God works for the good of those who love him. I'm not going to understand every reason why God says no to my prayers, or why I live through certain things and he doesn't take them away, or why certain good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. I'm not going to know the answers to all of these. So in times like this, I just have to trust that God does everything in goodness and love, and he may not answer the prayer the way I wanted, but he is always, always, always motivated by love. I just wanted to read you a poem as we close up, and it says this. You are who you are for a reason. You're part of an intricate plan. You are a precious and perfect, unique design called God's special woman or man. You look like you look for a reason. God made no mistake. He knit you together within the womb, and you're just what he wanted to make. The parents you had were the ones that he chose, and no matter how you feel, they were custom designed with God's plan in mind, and they bear the master's seal. No, that trauma you faced was not easy. Wasn't easy, right? And God wept that it hurt you so. But it was allowed to shape your heart so that into his likeness you'd grow. You are who you are for a reason. You have been formed by the master's rod. You are who you are, beloved, because there is a God. And those times that God has said no to things in your life have shaped you into the person who is exactly who he has planned you to be, who he has planned you out to be. That's all part of his plan and why you are. You're not going to get a yes answer to every one of your prayers. And to be honest, we should thank God for that, looking back on some of the things I've prayed for in life, to be honest. But some of them we're going to be able to figure out why, but some of them we're never going to know until we get to heaven. But we do know this. God is a good God. God is a loving God. He has a greater perspective. He has a better plan. And he has a greater purpose for each and every one of us. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just come to you this morning, and we come with different hurts and things we've been through in life, knowing that things may not have worked out the way we would have wanted, or maybe haven't worked out the way we had planned, but we know that you work things out for your purpose and for your reasons, and that you love us, that you are a God of love. And we just thank you for that. And I just ask right now that you just help us to understand that you're a loving God. We may not have the answers, but at the end of the day, you are growing us. You are growing our character. You're growing our person. And just help us to trust you and have faith in you, that you are in control at all times, and that because of that, we are going to be okay. And we just ask this in your name. Amen.